Why should I be honest when it feels like I get punished? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers.
We're therapists.
And we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin. Hey, Tyler, how's it going?
Brannon, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. You just got back from a cruise, huh?
I just got back from the cruise. The ground is still shaking underneath my feet. I feel like it's the weirdest thing to know that I'm on solid ground, but to feel like I'm moving all the time. But
isn't that weird?
I know
it's so weird. I hate that.
I've been thinking so much about, we're going to do a whole episode on it, probably about just perception and what we think reality is, because it feels so real to me that it's moving, but I know it's not.
Oh, there's analogies everywhere.
Yeah,
Sometimes the ground feels like it's shaking, but it's actually pretty stable.
Yeah. But yeah, no, first things first, it's actually my anniversary today. So I just wanted to throw a shout out to my wife, even though she never listens to any of these things. I've been with my wife for 24 years. It's been a wild ride. It's been an awesome ride. She is an incredible person. And I just want to throw a shout out to my wife and say that I love you and thank you for the journey that we've been on together. It's been an amazing journey, and I'm looking forward to the next 25 years.
I remember your wedding day, and it was like the coldest day I've ever.
It was freezing cold.
It was freezing, but it was beautiful. It was wonderful.
Beautiful.
Yeah. That drink we had at the wedding day, it was like that crystal clear, like it was good stuff. But
you remember better than me, man. My brain was spinning.
Well, yeah, hey, yeah, you had something on your mind, you know.
Yeah.
So, I want to say before we get going, this is our first show live on YouTube. So welcome to everybody joining us on YouTube. And I just want to say, one, our guests today are really special because they're really courageous to come on and do this with us. But feel free to leave comments, and you can put comments down below, but you can also chat to the side. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to our channel. And Tyler and I are doing this little thing where, Tyler and I usually are pretty much on the same page, but we differ a little bit, or we say things differently to try to help our guests. And we're brothers, and we got to know who's best. So if you like Brannon, put Team Brannon in the chat today. If you like Tyler, put Team Tyler in the chat today. All right. So
I've already put some ringers in, Brannon. I've tried to invite all of my groups. I know I run more groups than you do because you're semi-retired. So I've told them, please come to the live show and put Team Tyler in just so I can win the first day before the rest of everyone else finds us.
I'm glad you admitted that beforehand. So you just undid it all. But this is awesome. We have Bryce and Wendy here with us today, and just really appreciative that they're here. And you guys, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you could give us just a little bit of what's gone on with you guys and tell us your story a little bit, and then just ask any questions you have.
You want me to go for it?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll just kind of shoot from the hip here. We are a product of infidelity. I was married. Had an affair with Wendy. That goes back a long ways, but since then, obviously got divorced, and she and I came together shortly after that, and it's been now 7 years, close to it, that we've been married. Plenty of ups, plenty of downs, but a lot of it, I had disclosed to her prior to us getting married that pornography was an issue. And I thought that I was being very, very bold in doing so. I thought I might lose her, but she was very understanding, and we had a lengthy conversation about that. But then that's kind of where I stopped. I didn't go into much more detail. And so shortly after we got together, issues started to arise of things that were withheld. So I guess there was an issue of 100% transparency and honesty with my background. So through our relationship, it's kind of been, unfortunately, I hate to admit it, but it's kind of been one of those, what did you call it? A trickle disclosure. It's not all come out, and very little of it has come from me. Most of it has come from being discovered. And sometimes it was things that were just out of mind, didn't give them a second thought. Other times it was me being a coward and not owning up to something. So we a blended family. She had a few kids prior, 3 kids, and then so I inherited those, and then we had one together, and that's kind of brought the whole family together. And yeah, we've got it's a messy process, this whole recovery thing, but we are believers in the process, and we've shifted our focus from pretty heavy in the last year. We shifted it from sobriety to recovery, and seems to be a very big difference in the two.
Okay. Tyler, do you have any questions to start?
Yeah, just Wendy, would you add anything to that? And what questions would you guys want to start with?
I don't have a question just yet.
You can tell me how awesome.
Well, I'd be lying. Just kidding. I don't know just yet. I'm still thinking.
Can I ask you guys a question? We spur some stuff here. And I know this is hard because you're sitting right next to each other, and but when you look at your relationship, when it comes to safety, like feeling safe, meaning you're safe to be you're safe to be emotional, you're safe to be vulnerable. Do you feel trust? Do you feel like there's safety in your relationship? And my question is what areas does it break down?
I feel safe, like in a lot of ways, but he knows this. Like that doesn't mean I trust him. Like, but that's something I have to work on too. Like where those, I guess, fears come in, and why, like, just what I need to work on to trust. Like
that I like what you're saying, Wendy. That trust thing there's 2 sides to that equation. You need to work on trusting him, but also he needs to work on being trustworthy and building that trust with you, right?
Yeah.
You feel like that process is working?
I think so. I think just as long as I think he just needs to, like, I don't know how to explain this. He just needs to come out with whatever lie he's withholding, or just be honest, and then just let that play out. Like whether I'm going to have a hard time with it and work through that, or just not even care. Like his thing with the pornography before we got married. Like that was a very scary thing for him. And it was that's it. Like, I thought you were going to tell me like that you killed somebody or something, but it was like, oh, I watched porn. I was like, okay. And I felt like this is probably wrong. Like, well, everybody and their dog probably does. So thank you for telling me. I think he's just more scared of what reaction could come from that. But I think little by little, he's just being more open, and I like that better. So,
what breaks it down? I guess, I'm wondering about that because Brannon, you're talking about the one side of trust, which is, Wendy being able to trust Bryce, and how's that going on his side of restoring trust with Wendy. But there's also another piece of this that doesn't get talked about very often, which it sounds like we're starting to touch on a little bit, which is Bryce. What has prevented you from actually being open and self-disclosing in your relationship with Wendy? And why haven't you trusted her?
That one's pretty easy. The reason that I haven't is basically it's just me. I get in my head and I will make up these stories of what the reaction's going to be, and then I'll use that to not to basically justify not saying anything, saying, hey, I'm not going to make waves here. This probably isn't that big a deal anyway. And at this point in our relationship, these things are they're kind of small and insignificant. So I'm not sure why it's still a struggle at times. It's getting better because I've kind of decided to basically let the chips fall where they will, fall where they may, and tell her, let it happen. And the hardest thing for me is I like things to be fixed quickly. And so when I've come out with something and she has her right to a reaction and emotion, sometimes I go into a panic mode thinking, oh no, she's going to leave me. The relationship is over. I'm going to have to get a new place, all this kind of stuff. And it just spirals from there. But lately, in the last several months or a year or so, it's been more just come out with it, let her have her space. And sometimes that takes an hour. Sometimes that takes a couple of days. But it's been getting better to trust her to hold something when we actually do come back together and revisit it rather than letting it sit out there and fester, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah,
So if you go ahead, Tyler.
No, just to clarify really quickly then. So what I'm hearing you say, Bryce, is that it hasn't necessarily been a lack of trust in Wendy as much as a lack of trust in anyone, and especially her, because you're afraid of losing her. And so you've withheld information from the past because you're afraid of her then deciding not to be with you because it's tied to your shame and your brokenness, and she wouldn't want to be with a guy who's had those things in his past or done those things.
Right.
Has there ever been, and maybe there's another piece of this, is that maybe in the past when there has been disclosure, when you finally had the courage to be the honest guy, and then her response has been one of like, that's still painful for me, that still hurts, like ouch, like whatever else it is, there may have been a response inside of you that almost reinforces the old belief, which is, oh, I shouldn't have shared anything. Like, even though now you're learning that it's okay for her to have her own reaction and response to it, and that you being honest is still the way forward.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It all kind of boils down to the major issue that I've had to work on over the years is feeling like I'm in control of the situation, feeling like I can control the outcomes. And that doesn't allow me to give space for somebody to have their reaction and work through it in their time. I'm always quick to jump in there and figure out how I can smooth this over. And you're right. Sometimes you share something and you think, why did I do that? Like, what? The payoff here is terrible. But that's not for me to decide. And so it's taken many years to come to that.
Wendy, do you feel like you're able to hold space for him when he comes and it opens up?
In the moment, probably no. Like
Because you get triggered.
Yeah, I'm just like, this is what I'm working on. I'm usually like you're a piece of shit. Like, you shouldn't do it. Like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing?
Like, you idiot.
Yeah,
like, come on.
It's like, I want you to be honest with me, but you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, like and then I have to switch that. I still think that. I'm like, okay, you're not a piece of shit, but that was a piece of shit thing to do. Okay. So now I've had to change that, instead of attacking him, and I'm still not good at it because my mind sees red. But then but what I really like is that he's getting better at letting me get angry and leaves me alone. Like, quit trying to make things right now. Quit trying to treat me like a princess or whatever. I'm like, let me have my emotions. Like, don't come and you were already honest. You did what you were supposed to do. Now let me work through that. Like, you're still worthy. That makes you even more worthy because you were honest. So it's one of those things like, don't come and beg for my love. Like, don't. Like, you are worthy. You were honest. You did your part. Now let me get to mine. So that's that's as far as safety that I will hold in that moment. And then later on, I think I'll get better. Like I get better at it, but I don't like the begging of like, don't leave me. Well, I don't like, I hate it. It makes me want to leave him even more at that moment. Like, get out of here. Like it's just
that desperation is
look, I was a good boy. Don't leave me.
Yeah. No. And for me, I'm seeing him as like completely like, man, I hate you right now, but I actually respect you even more. But I'm still pissed off. You're still worthy of love. Don't come and show me why I should still love you. Like it's like I do love you. Like it's just I just need to be left alone at that time. So I'm not a good space holder in that moment.
Okay.
There's one other thing I'd like to say to that, and that's that I think when you first start this recovery journey, you have it in your mind what holding space is going to look like. And so I've had to learn what that looks like for Wendy and not to have this preconceived notion as to how that should go, how that process should be. Ideally, of course, in my mind, I kind of play out the conversation, but it seldom goes the way I think it would go, which is fine. But learning kind of how that looks for her, and I'll be honest, like when those things happen and it's a day or two or three of discomfort, it's awful. I hate it. Those days are so hard. They're so long. I don't feel productive. But as I've done that, it seems to have good results. And the next time we tend to work through something maybe a little bit quicker because we're starting to learn different habits on how to do that.
Okay. So just to kind of some of my observations here, a day or two, that is a long time. Like that really sucks when there's discord, and that's not fun for anybody. And Wendy, I really like how aware you are of how you see red, you get triggered and you want to just get in that persecutory mode. That's good awareness. Bryce, what I wonder for you, and I just wonder more about this dynamic, these things that you bring to her, is it like you're telling on yourself, or, you got to disclose something to her? And she's, cause it can really set up a thing where she's your God. You're scared of her. She holds all the cards. She holds all the weight. So if she gets mad, that's horrible. If she walks away, that's horrible. But she is the important one that says whether Bryce is okay or not. Is that kind of how it goes?
It has been, for sure. It's only been recently that started to shift a bit, and it's from the podcast primarily. You guys have done a whole lot for our relationship, more than you know. But listening to those, like you say, making her my God, getting my worth from her, all those types of things, that absolutely has been part of the equation. And so now it's kind of transitioned more into, I have to be aware, why am I feeling this? And I have a really good friend that I talk to, and he asks me these questions. He said, why are you doing that? And he says, why are you really doing that? And then he goes a third time, why are you really, really doing that? And by that point, if I go through that process, then I get more clarity and I get more honest with myself. Okay, why am I disclosing this? Is it to get her approval? Is it to suck up? Things like that. But in the end, it's become more of a thing to be more open, because that's the man I want to be. It's the man that I haven't been for this first 40 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now in an effort to become, to step into that manhood, that masculinity, as you've talked about, and be okay, understand that I'm okay if she is having a reaction that maybe doesn't feel very good.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bryce, part of what you were talking about with like this idea is you come finally, and it's like pulling teeth because you've lived a life of curating the way that you look to everybody. And now you've got your wife who means the most to you. And all she's been asking for all along is for you to just be transparent and honest in the way you live your life with her. You finally are starting to step into that. And when you get that triggered reaction from her, it hits the attachment wound inside of you that says, nope, proof you're not good enough. Look, you showed your weakness. You showed your vulnerability. She might leave you. And so your effort to hurry and fix it, you know what she was saying, like you're all of a sudden bringing home flowers, or you're here like over pursuing her or whatever else. And she's like, gag me with a spoon, like get away from me, give me space. Like, you know, that pursuit afterwards is the indicator that you're still operating from a place of shame and fear, and that she's your God, as Brannon was saying, rather than being able to do what you were just saying. And the holding of space is actually acknowledging that she can have her reactions and not disappearing, not getting defensive, not over pursuing, but saying, I'm here and I'm willing to be as close or as distant as you'd like me to be right now. And it's scary for me because I'm feeling all that stuff churn on the inside. But that's why the individual work of recovery matters, because that shame resiliency is what actually allows you to then step in and hold that space with empathy. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's been a process. I wish I would have started this stepping into it years ago. I kind of wasted a lot of time, but here we are.
Well, Bryce, I hope you're getting down to the core of it as well. Like, you know, why are you so afraid of that abandonment, of not being in control? There's reasons underneath. And so now Wendy and your relationship just becomes a reflection back of that. And what we're talking about is steady, healthy masculinity. It's Wendy's job to be emotional and up and down and all over the place. And for you, it's your job to be honest, to be grounded, to be boundaried with her if she is breaking your boundaries. But there's a reason why that energy isn't fully there. There's trauma and belief systems that have taken that from you. And instead of turning to Wendy to get those answers, and you've been doing this work and I love it, instead of turning to Wendy to get those answers, you got to stop turning to Wendy, like completely. And you got to figure out, what are my truths and where do I really feel grounded and okay as a man, independent of her? And then you go throw it on the table, like, here I am, like, this is really me, Wendy. Either you're going to love me or not, but I'm okay with me. And she'll probably jump your bones at that point, but she might not. And that's the risk. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I do like that. I do like that. This is who I am. This is what I like. This is what I'm about. This is what I'm into. This is what I fantasize about. And that's, to me, that's like really fun. It's like I'm loving someone completely unique rather than someone that's trying to fit a mold that somebody is saying like we're supposed to be like. And that's how I am. I'm all these different, I guess, colors. And he, like, when he met me, like, he knew my good, bad, and ugly. And it's like, if you're going to love me, you're going to love me for me. And like, that's what you get. Like, I mean, obviously I'll grow and stuff, but I want to love somebody that's unique, not a mold of what I've had in the past. So.
Well, Wendy, what you're saying is like, and this is across the board for everybody, you can't really love somebody unless they start showing up authentically. And somebody who is trying to use someone else to know who they are isn't showing up authentically. And so, Bryce, when you're coming to the table now and you're being more honest and you're being more grounded, it's like that's attractive. When you're coming to the table desperate, and Wendy said this earlier, like, please don't be mad, please, like that is so unattractive. It's like, hey, that's not a person that knows who he is, and I don't want to be close to that man, right?
And I hadn't considered that until you guys said that. And I thought, I don't want to show up like that. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to accomplish here. So that was really helpful. And I think just to put a plug in here for the retreats, the Rising Sun, that was an incredible experience. I walked away from that particular experience feeling this strong pull to be authentic. Say, this is me, this is who I am. And unfortunately, I'll admit that at my age, I sometimes don't fully know who that is. I'm still, at this point, I'm probably doing what I should have done in my early 20s, trying to figure out, okay, who am I? What am I about? So here we are all these years later and going in that direction. It feels much better, but it is scary. It's intimidating.
Bryce, can I give you a hint here? And
Yeah.
this goes for all of us. Who you are is not what was given to you that you should be.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
And some of the things about you that are in your nature and just natural actually conflict with the systems, with the shoulds.
Yeah.
And that's where shame really starts to thrive, of like, I'm supposed to be this way, but I don't fit that. So I'm going to act like I'm this way, even though I'm not. I'm going to live in secrecy, and I'm going to like live in shame.
Mhm.
And if people really knew me, they wouldn't love me. And then it's like, oh shoot, Wendy got a glimpse of me. Yikes, she's not going to love me. Right.
Right.
So you and who you are is lovable, and you are unique, and that's independent of everything that you've been told that you should be.
There's an interest. Yeah, go ahead, Wendy.
Oh no, you do.
No, go ahead, Wendy.
I was just going to ask, while he's regaining, well, this is not for him, like what I've seen, when a man is trying to start, I guess, regaining that masculinity, or being honest and saying, you know what, like, I know this has hurt you, but this is also me. There's still, this is why I probably should have waited, because I can't even really, it's like where they're,
It's still hard. Is that
like,
what you're saying?
so hard for women, like, to hear it or accept it, and then like the men will take it back. Like, well, we're saying like, oh, I want a man that's so honest and this, like, do we really? Like, because then we're judging them or making them feel awful for who they are. Or we say something like, oh, my whole life has been a lie. Like, I thought you were this way. Or why can't it be like, okay, I know that I said this, but now I'm showing up like this is really me, actually.
Mhm.
Now you can choose to stay or go. Like, so do we as women really want that? Like, for a man to be really honest and say, this is who I am, this is what I like. Like, that's where I'm trying to figure out where that space comes in, or that empathy. Like, okay, I know that this sucks, but like, I'm trying to show up this way now. Where is that? Like, does that question make sense?
Totally.
Okay.
It's a big question for you to ask, and I imagine that a lot of people listening right now are having weird emotions go through them with you asking that question. But I actually think you're onto something there.
What do you mean weird emotions?
Like what Wendy just basically said in her question was, as a betrayed partner, I say that I've always wanted honesty, but if my reaction is so horrible when they're honest, do I really want the honesty? And are there other women right now who have been betrayed, who are listening to this, who actually would maybe agree with Wendy's saying, if I'm honest, a part of me doesn't really want the truth, because the truth would lead me to have to make decisions that I'm not quite ready to make yet. And that's uncomfortable to have to stir in that. But what it brings up is a principle of truth, I think, which is that the best way forward is getting to a place from the truth of where the truth is at eventually. We have to be able to do that. And what you guys have been describing really well, actually, it's been kind of a gift, I think, you guys have brought out today, because this is common in a lot of couples that we work with, at least me, Brannon, I'm sure you see the same thing, is this is the paradox, what you just identified. Bryce, you're stepping into now being authentic while realizing that your wife may be triggered by your authenticity now because you haven't been. And some of the things that you've done are things that are abhorrent to her. And so she's naturally not going to like that you've disclosed things that she doesn't like. But now that there's space, she's also saying it's attractive to me when Bryce can still tell the truth and hold his shape and give me space to have my feelings. That's actually more attractive, and it builds more trust, even though her reaction to you is telling you something different. And that's the paradox that you have to step through over and over again, to have that practice of saying, whoa, okay, I can't take Wendy's reaction to me personally. I've got to wait for the aftermath when the drama comes down afterwards, and she comes back later and is like, I still don't like what you did. I'm really glad you were honest, and that sucked. It hurt. What you said hurt. And then you can say, I know it hurt. I wish I could take it back. But it's okay that you feel the way you do. Right? It's in the aftermath that there's trust now, and even connection inside of that, if you guys can ride the wave of your fear of losing control, and her then being able to have her own feelings. It's like I picture this. I use this all the time. Brannon used the definition a long time ago in our podcast of integrity as being able to hold your shape under pressure. Wendy's now saying, when Bryce holds his shape under my pressure, especially when it's the pressure that my reaction that I can't even hardly control because I just see red, when he holds his shape, it feels safe and he's more attractive. She's saying this to you now with a clear mind, and in the moment of the heat, she and you are neither in a clear mind, and so you have to be able to hold on to that and ride that back down until there's clear minds again that can prevail.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
We're talking about two different things. So, your question, Wendy, and everything Tyler just said. One is a foundational piece to a relationship. It's a principle that you live. And that needs to be there. The other is a trigger. So let me give you some examples here. Let's say my wife walks by and says, "Hey, do I look fat in this? Should I be honest? Like, should I be like, what should I say in that moment?" It's a tricky one, right?
Let's say you don't like it. You don't like what she's wearing. And she asks you, "Hey, do I look
does my
fat in
butt
this?"
does my butt look big in this or something, right? What should I say? Wendy, what should I help me here? What should I say? What would be helpful?
Well, I know when I ask Bryce, does this look good? And he's just like, oh, that looks so good. I'm just like, what a freaking liar. just tell me like, and now he's better at it. He's like, oh, I'd rather you wear high heels. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. Look. Thank you.
Rather than like, tell me like everything looks good. And like, oh, now I can't trust you because.
So for me to build trust with my wife, I need to be willing to disappoint her, like massively, to let her down. Maybe even she'll get angry sometimes or upset. And there's no way around that. Like it's kind of a beautiful thing. Now I don't go out of my way to try to do that. But the example I always give is if she made a meal that I hated and she asked me like, is it good? There's two things that I need to be able to do as a masculine, healthy man, is to be able to love her and see her and hold her. Is like, you know what? You worked so hard. Like thank you for like, you love me. You made that for me. I love you. And it is not my favorite. I would not put it on the menu, right? Now, I tell this story a lot, but it has a principle here that is like, so now she's let down. She's sad. Wasn't that good?
You don't have to eat it anymore, though.
I don't have to, thank goodness. But she's let down. But the principle, the deeper important thing in the relationship happened, which is awesome. She's like, oh, I got a man who I can trust. He's going to be honest with me. A man who's loving and kind, but also like, he's not there to just like make me smile all the time. I'd rather have a man who knows who he is than a man that's just trying to please me. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, that's where it's like, I feel safe. I feel safe with him because I know him. And even if it's hard, he's going to be honest. That's what you want to create in your relationship. So Wendy, back to your question. I love your question about, is that what women really want? The truth is healthy women do. And women who are struggling with a lot of their own triggers, sometimes the trigger is so overwhelming when he is honest that they can't stay in that relationship. It's so difficult. And that's where that friction point is where good therapy happens. Of a therapist can help you hold that space of like, let's work through, you're not going to die from this trigger and you're not going to die from being honest. And you guys can actually start to navigate and create some connection and understanding from this really hard topic, this really difficult thing. And that's where the beauty of the relationship really starts to come together. So
there's something that's kind of rattling around in my mind here, and we were stuck for a long time. We wanted to get to this point where traction was starting to be gained, but we just kind of felt stuck. And finally, I think, I don't know, I'm not sure if this will be helpful for anybody else, but finally what got us over that hump, that cycle, was actually doing something together that made us both, it forced us both to be very vulnerable. And that kind of kicked off that trust. It gave us somewhere to start. And then from there, it's been a lot easier to be open and honest and things. But anyway, if that helps anybody, I don't know if it does or not, but it took putting ourselves in a situation where you have no choice. You have to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And if you aren't, okay, the other person's going to know. Okay. Yeah, in Paris.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to figure out, like, if that was us putting ourselves in a vulnerable situation. Maybe it was, I guess. It was more, I felt like I was putting him in a vulnerable situation. Just like, come on, like, let loose, be real. Just, I don't know, maybe.
But it got things moving. And that was the part that I couldn't figure out how to get out of this cycle. And there's times where I'll still fall back into that, but it's like I say, we're starting to learn different habits, different methods, and they come to mind a little bit quicker, which is helpful.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was reading this question. Can you explain it? It says, can healthy women want different things, though? Are we allowed to do this? I'm sorry. Or does it generally look one way? Like, what does that mean? Like,
so Wendy's actually reading one of the live chats that are going on, and I actually just responded in there. But since you asked, let's talk about it for a minute, because what Brannon said is, for a healthy woman, they're not gonna. An unhealthy woman will not want the truth, possibly, because the truth will then, whatever. I don't know exactly how you said it, Brannon. And then the question came up here was, well, could a healthy woman want something different than that? And my response to that was yes. Like, the thing is that a healthy woman then gets to make choice based on reality when she's with a partner who's being honest and authentic with who he is. So I know for a fact in my relationship, if I were to go home and say, hey, babe, the guy that I am is that I actually feel like we should have an open relationship. And I'm going to go do that. And I'm going to pursue those things. And it's okay for you to be upset about that. I'm still here, whatever. My marriage is pretty much over. Like, because my wife's values aren't going to line up with that. And she's going to say, I'm not in for an open relationship. I believe in fidelity in marriage. And so her being healthy would then also mean her making her own choices, owning her own choices based off of her values. So I don't know if that's speaking to the question that you were asking, Wendy, or not.
Yeah, I do got to say to that, like, let's say, and this is maybe out there, but let's say an angel came down, Tyler, to you and said, you must have an open relationship. Okay.
So you're opening a can of worms, Brannon.
It was obvious from God that that's what you need to go ask your wife for. Okay.
Okay.
So it is the truth for you. It is so resounding the truth. And you know that she'll probably leave you if you go tell her that.
Yes.
So then what should you do?
I should be honest, keep my integrity, lose my wife, and start a new life. If that's the truth.
Right. And so that's why
Right. But I shouldn't string her along and pretend I'll want to hold on to this relationship and tell her that I'm going to do things that I'm not going to do and then go and live my truth in the background. I should be living my truth up front.
yep.
And that gives a fair opportunity for my partner to then make her choices based off of the truth that she's living as well.
A healthy woman will always want the truth. So like, will she not want the truth if now she can still leave you, she could still divorce you,
she would want the truth.
would want the truth.
It would crush her world.
Yes.
It would destroy her emotionally, but she would rather be there. And I think a lot of partners would agree with what I'm saying right now. I would rather be there fully crushed in reality to pick up the pieces and move on with my life than to be strung along for the next 30 years.
Yeah. To be in like living in a place of denial. Right.
What do you mean, like strung along? Like, what I'm thinking when I hear that is most women, even though they're crushed and they hear something they don't agree with, goes against their values, they still stay and make each other's lives, I would think, a living hell, even though they're still getting along and all this, except now I don't have this with, like, I don't trust you, even though you did something that would build trust. And now depending on what it is, now I don't want to touch you. Now I don't want you to hold me. Now I don't I want nothing to do with you. Like, so when does that become, I guess when women stay after something like that, or a man, when does it become, I guess, how do I say it? Do you know where I'm trying to go with this? I'm always having such a hard time with this
You're
crap.
okay, Wendy.
Oh, that's good. It's cool to see you wrestle with this.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out when is staying
More harmful than leaving.
yeah, like I guess I just see that a lot. Like, okay, now the husband or the wife is like condemned for life for this move that they did to like be honest, and the person doesn't choose.
Wendy, I think the answer to that is both partners need to be honest. So like, and when the dishonesty breaks down, that's where the suffering happens. That's where the hell happens. So like, if I go to my wife and I'm honest and I tell her stuff and she is like, well, I can't divorce him because the kids and because of money and because of all this stuff. But like everything inside of me is telling me I'm not supposed to stay in this marriage after he told me that. Then she's going to be stuck. And when she's stuck, that's where the hell starts to happen. If she faces a hard reality and is honest back with me, we both get unstuck. And we got to walk through the misery to get out of hell. It sucks. But at least we're both being honest and we're both moving forward. Now, we're using extreme examples that lead to like divorce every time. And this principle holds true with smaller, more like benign things of like, if Wendy goes to Bryce or Bryce goes to Wendy and says, hey, I want to tell you this thing. I think this, or I would like that, and it triggers and it's like, whoa, but it doesn't break a value or a principle that's like, I got to divorce you now. It's like, ooh, that's uncomfortable. Now we get to work through this together. In an interdependent way. You get to be you, I get to be me, but how do we like do this thing? Like whether it's our faith or sex or money or whatever, like how do we do this thing with me being me and you being you? And that's where a relationship can get really good if you know how to do that.
Can we do a big one? Like that always has my brain turning like crazy.
Okay.
Like the husband gets caught with porn, watching porn, or he comes and says, I've been watching porn for all our marriage. Whether it's 5 years or 24, 34 years.
Okay.
Why, and I hear this a lot in the podcast. Sorry. Why is porn like, and I know it's not good, but why is that enough to not want to have a relationship with your husband or have connection with your husband, like for so long? Like, I think one of them was like 3 years or something, and not really like just. At what point does the man have to be like, oh, like, you know what? I was honest. Like, I've been in jail too long now. Like, at what point can he start finding his worth and knowing that he deserves more than what is being given?
So he's in purgatory because he admitted to porn. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
And it's like he's supposed to just kind of, keep his head down and.
And Wendy, I think you're alluding to it, saying basically that trust and physical intimacy is now turned off because this disclosure has happened. Let's assume that the recovery is now working, and he's actually diving in, and he's actually working on getting sober and living a life of authenticity and wholeheartedness. And 3 years later, she's still in the spot going, I still don't feel safe. This is still scary for me. I don't really want to lean in physically with you. That's your question, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's dehumanizing for the person that did the damage. So now they're like so unworthy of physical touch or hugs or even just a kiss or an I love you or like.
Wendy, it's the same principle we've been talking about in that, like, honestly, he needs to man up and be honest about what works for him and what doesn't. I realize that, someone that looks at porn has no leg to stand on and is the worst devil, horrible, most person ever. You're right. But the problem is where we go with that oftentimes is like, you know what, you monster, shut up and take it. And the reality is that's not what the partner wants. Like what I was saying earlier. If he acts pathetic and will take the scraps, he's not going to rebuild trust with her. If he acts unmasculine, he's not going to rebuild trust with her. So at some point, somebody made a comment here that says he'll need to establish boundaries with his wife. That's spot on. At some point, he's got to ask himself, like, does this work for me?
Well, Brannon, on the other side, she's going to eventually have to ask herself if this is actually working for her too. Like if she's just holding on to this relationship for 3 years and doesn't honestly feel safe enough to lean back in, she either has to come to a place of acceptance that they're going to live in a platonic relationship, or she's going to have to start realizing that the writing's on the wall, that maybe she needs to make different decisions so that she can have the life she was designed for. Right. And what happens too often to couples with what Wendy's saying right now is that they go through such a terrible time that when they get to where the ground isn't shaking under their feet again, they assume that's good enough and they settle for it. And then they live in this little one down position, weird dance. He performs to never get left or dropped. She never quite fully leans back in. And that to me is purgatory. That's a stop. That's a place
for both of them.
That's a place where every couple kind of goes through in the process of recovery, but too many couples get stuck in that space because it becomes its own form of safety, but it's a mess of pottage instead of the birthright. And that's where people have to end up taking the next step of courageous action to say, we either need to start doing what's necessary to leaning back into this and having a life of authenticity. And this is where Brannon's spot on. If two people are living a life of authenticity, the relationship will naturally develop itself, or it will naturally break itself apart. Mm-hmm. But we have to be willing for either outcome because authenticity and truth and integrity matter more than anything else on both sides. Now, there's room for process in that. If I go to work and start saying, okay, you know what? I did hurt my wife. I need to be sensitive. I need to learn empathy. I need to learn the skill of listening and being honest and living with integrity. I'm going to work on that. And that's going to buy me some time while she goes through her own struggles, her own healing path, her own recovery, gets her feet planted again. That buys both of us time to make a decision on the relationship. But eventually, if I'm in a relationship with a partner who doesn't want to engage physically with me and it's turning into years, eventually my authenticity is going to probably say, hey, this isn't really working. Like, can we start moving forward? And if not, then we need to make some different decisions. That'll be honest eventually.
I just don't understand like where both of them in that place like can even hold space for each other or be there for each other when they're both so I don't know.
Yeah.
Stuff hurts.
Can I come to my wife and say, hey, this isn't working for me, but it makes total sense to me why this is so hard for you to be leaning back in? And I want to understand that. I want to know about that. I want to see if there's anything that can be done to help with that process. And I'm also being honest here with you about how I'm feeling, what's going on for me too. Both can be true at the same time.
This one's a hard one for me too. I have to ask because I know we're running out of time and I have to get my ask in there. But when the wife can come and say, like, I can't have sex with you because you've hurt me, you've watched porn, whatever. So I don't feel safe. And then the man comes and he's like, it's been like what, 6 months, whatever. The guy comes and he's like he's also sharing his feelings too and saying like, I really want you. Like, I want to have sex with you. Like, I'm really sorry. Like, when can we do this? Or I'm just letting you know that I really want you still. To her, and he's being authentic. He's speaking to his need, his want. I know he screwed up, but to the female, his authenticity looks like manipulation. Like, oh, he's trying to like guilt me into having sex with him, like pressure. There you go, pressure. And then this one's more like, and I see this one as like he's allowed to be able to speak that too, like as well. That's where I'm coming on. And yes, she can do. She's also speaking. Like, I think we're constantly, the women or men, whoever was betrayed, we're constantly speaking. I'm not safe. This is why I can't lean in. I can't do this. I'm not safe.
Wendy, Wendy.
Their stuff either. Even
Wendy,
sorry.
You're asking questions that could be like a 3-part series.
Oh man.
Just because this is right at the end here. I wish we could really dig into this because
hold space for
it's it's important that it does come down to authenticity. And she might be saying you're pressuring me, and he might be saying I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
And from a man's standpoint, especially when it comes to sex, pursuit is okay. A woman wants to be pursued and wants to be desired and wanted, but also respect and safety is absolutely important. So no as an answer is always a good answer. That works for me, but I'm gonna come on to you and I love you. And and there's that uncomfortable space between a couple. And if you don't have the underneath stuff that's really important, the trust, the safety, the communication skills,
shame resiliency,
good one, Tyler. Yeah. If you don't have that stuff underneath, then sex and it's like topics like this can just, explode into all kinds of drama and stuff. Or they can explode in other good ways. Good intimacy will happen. And, but that work has to be there. And situations like this, Wendy, are not the things that destroy the relationship. Situations like this are the opportunities the couple have to get to know each other better, to learn where they're at, to be honest with each other. And if they're using opportunities like this toward healing, awesome. If it's getting worse and worse and worse, then something needs to change. So I just tried to get as much as I could in there right at the end here, Wendy.
We are out of time, but this is something that we would love to talk about more. It's a great question. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. We'd love to have you back sometime in the future if you guys are willing and it's helpful for you. But yeah, thank you guys. You guys are great. We know you because of the retreats and everything else. And I think I speak for Brannon when I say this, that we love both of you guys a ton, and we appreciate the work that you're doing. To those of you guys who are actually listening and participating online with the live, thank you for your chats, your comments. We love having you here. Just so you know, we're going to be coming back live in just a couple of minutes with another new guest. For this first week of going live on YouTube, we're actually doing 6 episodes this week for the people who are attending live. So there'll be another one here in just a couple of minutes. There'll be 2 on Wednesday and 2 on Friday as well. So we love having you guys here. Thank you guys for your comments, your participation. Thank you for listening. We love hearing from you, and it's our guests that make the show. So Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you guys.
Bye.